nothing.
Is that the same thing you're applying in agriculture as well?
That is correct. We look at agriculture, great sector, but the truth is, if I blew a whistle today and say I'm going to give funds to everybody, that's going to be a line of 20 million people outside my door. No, the reality is that we will invest. We invested in a fund, and that fund is well set up to deal. They're specialist funds who understand agriculture. They know how to deal with small-scale farmers better than we do, and we've invested in them. So the same way we are sourced to the firms you mentioned earlier for the stabilization fund, where we can't find outsourcing opportunities, we'll outsource to other funds, write a check to those funds and have those funds deal with them, because we can't solve all problems at once. So investing is a business where you learn. Over time, as we build various expertises, will expand. Today, if you ask me to invest in, I don't know, pick a sector out of the 15, we don't have the expertise. I have to go and hire the expertise of people who can do that. So I have to choose how to make sure I strike the right balance between a profitable business and solving the social and economic problems that we are set up to solve. And I think, like I said to you, give it time. Methodically, we'll solve one after the other. More funds into the fund, and then we'll expand our scope of operations as well.
Now let's look at that future generation fund. Yes, it's particularly interesting. When you're talking about future generation, so many things come into play. One of the biggest ones I know is education.
That's correct.
And we know that not so exciting to talk about all the time, but now we know that all stakeholders, both private and the public sector, are doing everything that they can to make sure that the education sector gets to where it's supposed to be.
That is correct.
So does that also fall into this future generation fund?
Absolutely. No, so actually we have, within the infrastructure fund, we have what we call a social infrastructure fund, which is up to 10% of the Nigeria infrastructure fund. So up to 40 million of that goes into that. And education, we've been looking at opportunity in education for the last, since WEF started, I think in May. So it's one of the sectors we're considering. And the investments we want to make is, see, when I look at education, for me, it's not just about building wonderful buildings, it's actually making sure the quality of the curriculum is rich. If I told you that families, poor families, spend a lot more of their income in private education, you will not believe it, than middle-income families do, and that's the research we've seen. Why? Because things like kindergarten, little kindergarten that they also, this is all private education. How do you make sure the curriculum is rich? What kind of investments can you make to make sure that the right quality of material is taught to these kids? So there's some opportunities we've seen there, but I can assure you, education is one of the areas we're looking at for our social infrastructure fund.
Yeah, because it was one of the things that was even mentioned at the Nigeria Economic Summit meeting earlier in the year, focused basically on education. You were also a speaker at that summit, and it seemed as if there's a great plan, but then it's how to follow it through.
Sure. There is a plan. For us, it's a new plan for us because social infrastructure has been the latter part of the process of developing the NSIA. But education right now is the education opportunity we've seen is one that I think is at the forefront of our whole social infrastructure investments. For us, I think there are a couple of things. One is making sure our investments are safeguarded. And so that has been a slight, I don't want to use the word delay, but it's part of the process we have to go through. But education we're looking at, healthcare we're looking at. Healthcare for me is massive, because if you look at the numbers of healthcare, I'm not looking at the top 1% that spend a lot of money on medical tourism, or even the top 2 or 3%. I'm looking at the next 10, the next 15%, where people will actually pay significant amounts of money for healthcare. Again, this is another area that we're looking at to invest in. So yes, back to education. We are looking at education, but my interest in education, at the moment, the opportunities we have seen have been actually more at the primary and the secondary and primary level, and slightly below that.
So nothing yet for tertiary institution, the ivory towers, as we say.
Again, we will take it one step at a time. See, don't forget this. One of the things I decided earlier on when I started is that, look, that's why people say cut your coat according to your size. The reality is that our size isn't that huge, and so you cannot decide to roll the die and take on everything. You will achieve nothing. Let's pick on the ones we can show performance in those. But again, people look at Second Niger Bridge and sweep it away, and the reality is that this is a massive project. It's a $700 million project when it's done. It's not just a bridge, it's a bridge and a road. It's 1.8 kilometer bridge crossing, but it's 10-kilometer approach road.
But then somebody would have, sorry to cut you there, but is that a priority? Is that a top priority?
No,
there are other priority infrastructure projects that you could have also focused on.
You start with one. That one was ready. Again, I give you 4 points. I gave you national priority. Is it? Lagos Ibadan is a national priority. Are the legal and investment environment conducive? Yes. For that it is. For Lagos-Ibadan, it's getting there. So these are investments we made. So motorways is one of the investments we've made. We've made investment in agriculture. That was the first investment we made. Again, that was all set and ready to go. We made investment at the end of last year. We made investment in something to enable housing. That was an investment made in Q1. Do you understand? So things have been done that I think people have to understand. But again, it's one step at a time, and these things have to be done properly. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to come back to this show, and you're going to ask me, so you lost money in XYZ investment, what happened? And so we have to be very careful. Some of them may happen, but we have to be very careful to be sure that we did not happen out of negligence.
Okay, so where you are right now, that's where the NSIA is at the moment. And just give yourself a time frame. You said you're going to come back here and tell me or talk to me about the progress or regress that the NSIA has made.
No regress.
Progress, okay.
Yes.
That the NSIA has recorded. But you must definitely give yourself a time frame to achieve most of all these projects that you've started out.
Yes. Okay, so the investments we've made there, so I can go back in time and go through them one by one. Number one objective is to make sure we're fully invested by the end of this year, right? Future Generations Fund, we've only invested about 55% of it. I want to be sure we're fully invested by the end of this year so that we can actually start measuring full performance from 2015. Yeah, that's number one. Stabilization Fund has been fully invested, but again, that does not generate a huge amount of return because don't forget the essence of the Stabilization Fund is to write a check in times of economic stress to help stabilize the economy, right? So that is daily liquidity. It's targeted at earning somewhere around 2%. So that has been fully invested. Infrastructure Fund, I'm hoping that by the end of next year, we'll be fully committed by the end of this year, I'm hoping. But by the end of next year, we'll be fully invested. The Infrastructure Fund, in my opinion, is built to earn a significant amount of return. But I expect that we'll be fully committed and deployed. For the Future Generation Fund, by the end of this year. Infrastructure Fund, hopefully by the end of next year, but fully committed this year, invested by the end of next year.
What about the $200 million for the gas to power project?
The gas to power project, again, by the end of this year, fully committed. Fully committed by the end of this year, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Uche, for coming on the program this morning. It's been an interesting conversation.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've been speaking with the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria's Sovereign Investment Authority, Uche Oje, and we've been taking a look at the Sovereign Wealth Fund and other issues, of course, that have come up. But thank you so much for being a part of today's edition of the program. It's the first edition for the week. Of course, it's a holiday, so do enjoy the celebrations and as much as possible, stay on alert. We know that there's tension everywhere, but as much as possible, let's be our brother's keeper. But thank you so much for being a part of today's program. I'm Harriet Abini. Bye-bye.